but I can tell you that I treat the brain like a muscle. So I stimulate it just like a muscle. And with a muscle, when you exercise it, it gets stronger. And when it gets stronger, it can do anything that it could do before, but it can do it better, it can do it longer, it can do it easier.
Welcome to Elevate, the gathering spot for first responders, their families, and the communities that support them. We bring you honest conversations and actionable insights, focused on building resilience and finding balance in places we never thought to look. Each episode is your open invitation to broaden your understanding, shed new light on perspectives, and explore new ways to manage the weight we carry. It's about fortifying bonds, welcoming fresh ideas, and acknowledging every step forward. Together, let's elevate. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Goodnight. And before we bring our guest on today, I just want to make sure that you like, share, subscribe, hit that bell that you get notifications when we post new episodes. And, you know, if you're hearing this message and any part of this message on any of our podcasts that you tune into, if you think of someone that this speaks to, don't hesitate to share it with them. Hit the share button, send them the link, let them get the information that you think may help them. Before we get started and introduce our next guest, he's going to blow your mind, which is actually a really fun way of saying, because he's a brainwave engineer. So with that being said, one of the things I want to talk about today before I bring him on is the fact that the Elevate podcast is a podcast for you to come to a safe place and understand that we have options now, okay? First responders, men and women, we have options now. A lot of us didn't get training in the beginning, right? We did not get the training that we should have to be able to understand and how to package and carry the weight that we carry. Well, now we have the training. I myself put on trainings. Other people put on trainings. A lot of different places do trainings now to how to wrap our head, if you will, around the things that we see, whether it's on scene or off scene, at home or our families, life in general. We have new technology. The science is there that proves that it's our brain and not a weakness. The science is there that shows what trauma does to our brain, however it comes in, whatever trauma is to you. And there's many things that can help us now compared to how it used to be. So I really want to put a challenge out to everybody to strip the stigma away about one, fortifying yourself and getting resilience training, and two, if you are in crisis or if you feel like you're on your way to crisis, to reach out and get help. It's not just about the shrink that shrinks your head or the talk therapy or admitting that you're not strong enough. That's hogwash, okay? To use a word that my grandfather used to use. So what hogwash means, if you don't know what that means, it's this bullshit, right? Because true strength means that you know how to take care of yourself, so therefore you can take care of others. And that's what we were put on this earth to do. We were put on this earth to do what we do, to take care of others. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. So little soapbox there, wanted to get that out of the way before we start this, because one of the things that my guest, whose name is Morry Zelcovitch, he is a brainwave interpreter and engineer, and it is something that when I first met him and he told me just the 30,000 foot view of what he does, I instantly realized that I needed to share him with the world and my world, because he has options that are very what would you say? Very unique and very, very easy to get involved with. And it is something that you can do with yourself, not with others. And you can actually make change in your brain, which makes change in your life. So before I go any further, Morry Zelcovitch, welcome to the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Kyle, and thank you everybody out there. So as Kyle said, my name is Morry Zelcovitch, and I'm the world's first and only brainwave entrainment engineer. Basically, I create, using MP3 files for audio and MP4 for audio and video, I create stimulation packages that alter brainwave activity by using specific sounds and imagery that I create. By changing brainwave activity, I help to change brainwave chemistry. And for all of you out there, if you feel happy, if you feel sad, if you feel angry or mad or excited, anything at all, you don't actually know it until your brain creates chemistry that is coded to let you feel it.
Hmm.
So anything you feel is a result of brainwave activity that creates chemistry that creates your response. Through the use of sound and various other visual stimuli, I can help your brain to produce chemistry that is more serving, if you will, that can alter how you see the world around you. You know, all of us, I believe, walk around thinking that we live in the same universe as everybody else, but it's really evident when we look around, we don't. You know, each of us experiences pain differently, and each of us experiences joy differently, and different kinds of pain and different kinds of joy. I believe we all exist in our own little universes. And this technology helps us to stabilize our perception of that universe. So we actually see it the way it should be. I believe that there's a reason why we're happy and there's a reason why we're sad. Happy says we're thinking and doing the right things. Sad means we're thinking and doing the wrong things.
Good point.
It's not bad to feel bad. It's actually good because it tells you you're doing and or thinking something incorrectly. And the way to do it is to keep changing until we feel better.
Mhm.
That's when we know we're doing and thinking the right things.
Wow, that's really cool. When you mentioned something there about the perception about how two people that everybody has their own universe, that really speaks chords because everybody's heard me talk about this book on my podcast because I believe it's a prerequisite for anybody in the healthcare field and pretty much anybody in the world should just read this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And what we've found out from parts The Body Keeps the Score mentions in it is that your experience and my experience in the same exact moment, side by side, will be different because of our past, because of our present, because of our future. You and I can witness the same exact thing, and it can be completely different when someone asks us to tell the story about how we interpreted that situation. Take, for example, I had my own crisis a few years ago. That's the reason why I'm bringing you Elevate, that I have come on the backside of using alternate different types of therapy, for lack of better words. And I came back on the other side in a better place. I package things better now. I deal with things better now. I pre-package things better now because of things I've learned, tools I've learned, things that weren't off the wall, beaten path of unnormal, right? It was all like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's pretty simple to do this. And that's pretty, oh, I can understand that. So what happened there was I was, I had a specific type of run that when I finally found out later on, when I unpackaged it all, I had a crisis when I was a child that made this run be a lot different than the other 4 or 5 people that were on the same run with me. And that's when my world opened up to the realize that our brains are so powerful that even subconsciously they remember things that you may not even remember 100% of. But then when something happens that gives your subconscious the reminder of that, it brings back some bad things sometimes, or it makes you feel uneasy. So when we talk about the different things that we can do to fortify ourselves with that, the brainwave discussion, the EDMR. That was going to be my next question to you. Is a lot of people have heard of what EDMR is now. It's the rapid eye movement and left side, right side of the brain, and it's shown and been proven to be very, very good in post-traumatic stress situations and helping deal with patients and with people. How does your concept differ, or is it an extension or a substitution or an added benefit of EDMR that is out there in the world? How does Brainwave deal with that?
I like added. I don't think anything is better than anything
Okay,
else.
that's
So
another thing that I love that you said that because it's like because we all perceive things differently. One thing could work for someone, and another thing couldn't.
yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, right? So the more options you have available. Look, I spent 40 years looking for options. I ended up not finding any for me, which is why I had to develop what I developed. But mine is kind of okay. Here's the thing with me. I tried lots of things for lots of years and decades, really,
Right.
and nothing really seemed to help. Sometimes it didn't help because it just didn't help me. Other times it didn't help because I was too busy questioning it, I think.
Mm,
Am I supposed to feel like this? Is this supposed to be happening? Is anything supposed to be happening? I'd be questioning myself so much that even if I was getting benefit, I probably wasn't getting benefit. I had the same situation with EDMR
okay.
that, everything I read said it should help me and it did nothing for me.
Right.
So I realized at that point, well, not at that point, but with a lot of other points, that I needed something that worked automatically without me needing to do anything really. So I designed systems that don't require me to do anything. Literally, I put on headphones, I hit play. The rest of it, I can think what I want. I can fall asleep. I can have a nap. I don't have to read anything. I don't have to study anything. I don't have to learn anything. This is perfect for me because I
Sounds
don't
like it
need
could
to
be
do
perfect
anything.
for a lot of us first responders because of the as much stuff is swimming around in our heads on a daily basis, and how stubborn we are to actually do anything about the stuff that we see and deal with, not just on scene, but our families and outside life as well that is affected by what we do. And it's really interesting to hear that it sounds like a bold statement, of course, as you have probably heard before, like, wow, that sounds a little too good to be true. However, you have science behind it. You have explanations. You have situations where you can share a demo of it to see if it's right for
Hmm.
them, that kind of stuff. So I
Sure.
know that from talking to you a few different times and in our pre meetings. And so yeah, thank you so much for sharing about the fact that you tried other things to get through whatever you got through. Now, a little bit about that. You're not a first responder, correct?
No.
Okay.
Well, not really. No, although a lot of my clients tend to call me when they're in need. So, in a
Well, then
manner of
that
speaking, I'm kind of like some
yeah,
kind of a first responder. I'm
there's
not the kind of
mental health first
first
responder.
responder you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
But, the kinds of things I've seen some things in my life that I can't unsee.
Right. And that's the same thing that happens all the
Yeah.
time in a more accelerated and more frequent.
Hmm.
One of the guys I talked to who's going to be on the podcast of here pretty soon is he talked about his PTSD being CPTSD, which is cumulative. So
Yeah.
his PTSD didn't come from one event; it came from an added, that vicarious trauma as he went through his career. Whether that was things he saw, whether that was things that he had to deal with at home, whether that was disappointment in himself or his family or what have you, or his marriage or what have you. So that cumulative thing is real, and that's what we have to focus on. Everybody is that accumulation of what, not only what we see, but what we go through on a daily basis can get us to a point where we don't know where to turn. And if we
Some,
understand that, go ahead.
Sorry, something just came to me, and I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're fine.
when you were talking, I think something that I mean, you guys might already do this. When I say guys, I mean men and women, by the way. I'm
Correct.
not
Yep.
just talking about,
Guys, as in general, yeah. The first
yeah.
responder world. Yep.
Okay. So I believe that it might be very healthy for first responders to be able to get follow ups on people they've helped that are now doing well.
So I am so glad that you said that. I have spoke on that before, and that is 100% something that is very beneficial. I can speak of this to grave extent, because great extent. Sorry, we had a pretty bad run last night. That kind of
Yeah.
made me think about some things. So Morry and I spoke about it earlier, but nonetheless, it is very, very important to get closure. That is a big part of it. Now, I come from
Well,
a
also it
hospital
gives
world.
you, it shows you how valuable the work you're doing is. You're
Right.
kind of like heroes. Like
Yeah, all
literally,
of us.
this
Yeah,
is
a
a
lot of
job
us.
for,
A
right?
lot of
I
us
mean,
won't. Well, a lot of us won't admit to that, and a lot of us
I
don't
have,
like to hear that
okay, let
word.
me talk from experience then. I have had lots of dislocated bones, lots of broken bones. I broke my kneecap, multiple fractures at the same time of like my ankle. I've slipped discs, I've cracked ribs, broken nose, smashed teeth. I've had lots of experience with first responders. And I can tell you the value that you folks give the world isn't for believing. A lot of us who are the ones you're serving aren't at a point where we show appreciation just yet. I try to, even if I'm in agony, I'm trying to, because
Right.
I've had so much experience with you folks that, I want you to know right away that I
Right.
appreciate everything you're doing.
Right. Well, thank you so
But I
much.
think it would be healthy for you all to know how valuable you are and how appreciated you are, and to see the result of your work, that someone who is this close to not
Right.
being anymore is happy and
Exactly.
healthy and living a good life. I think it'll help you to deal with the trauma of seeing what you have to see, because not everybody can do that. A lot of
Right.
people turn their heads
Yeah.
and you people are not like that. And I can tell you from personal experience, like, look into my eyes, okay? I am not bullshitting you.
Right.
I You guys are Superman and Superwoman, and thank the world for all of you.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that, and we do get compliments like that all the time. Although the hero word is not something that we typically accept to as like, yep, and walk into a room like, okay, the heroes are here, because it's almost like we just want to do our job. Our job is to do this, and that's what we want to do. But back to the follow up thing. I can
Mhm.
speak of this with very much conviction, because I come from a hospital world as well. I was a respiratory therapist for 12 years before I became a paramedic. I worked mainly level one trauma centers and high end ICUs, like high acuity level ICUs and CICUs, and heart transplants, lung transplants, traumas, gunshot wounds, all that stuff, right? And I never had the issues that I have had build into me inside of the EMS world. Okay. I didn't have my blind side. My incident happened to me until 20 years as a whole into my career. And I'm at 26 plus right now. So just over 26 years. So what happened in that 20th year? Well, it was an incident that reminded me of something that I didn't realize I remembered from my childhood, right? Another thing that has happened is I sat back and I wondered, like, why. I've seen some crazy stuff. Like, what I saw wasn't, I mean, it was bigger than I've ever imagined, but I've seen some crazy things in the ER, right? Like some disgusting, horrible acts on people, torture, all kinds of stuff. But you got to remember, in the hospital setting, most people leave the hospital. Okay. Not everybody comes to the hospital and dies at the hospital. Most people get discharged from the hospital. So there is definitely closure there. Someone that comes in the ER that's in a trauma, I may see them 2 weeks from now and see them in the ICU and see how they've gotten better. Now, if they may not get better, but I have closure. I have understanding that we have done everything to help them. And that really does help. And then when you get into the EMS world, I was talking to an EMT about this everything that I'm doing right now. And one of the things, he asked the same question: do you guys get follow up? And I'm like, actually, we do. So in my charting system, I have a button that I can go, boom, I need follow up. I did it last night. I want to know what's going on with this guy, right? So I hit a button that says I want follow up. In a couple of weeks, I'll get follow up. We have a liaison that calls the hospital that they got taken to, and they give a HIPAA compliant report back to us that tells us everything that was diagnosed and what path the patient had went down, right? So we do get closure if you have it in your system set up that way. My department fortunately does. Now, places that don't, your firefighters, depending on if they're paramedics and how their charting system is built, they may not get follow up. We have our police officers. Most likely, they don't have a way at all to get follow up, right? Whether the times that they do good for people, unless we bring them into the situation when we have like a cardiac arrest or a bad accident, and they're part of the debriefing / part of the celebration of life afterwards. If we have a save, and we have a yearly awards banquet that tells us, we share with the whole community that we and ourselves that we had saves in cardiac arrests and whatnot, or childbirth, or a drowning save or what have you. So we have things set up that does give us more closure than ever before in my career, at least in my department. And I would encourage all of you out there listening, if you don't have anything set up for what Morry just mentioned, please, please, please make this a big part of your yearly thing. The next big thing you do for your department is try to figure out a way where you can get follow up. Dispatchers, not very often do they get follow up from the calls that they get, unless it's a big cardiac arrest type of thing and they get brought in during the celebration. They don't get the follow up like I used to get in the hospital. So it does weigh on you. It does wear you down. Like, what did I do actually help what eventually happened with this person? Whether that's
Yeah.
splint their leg and they didn't get it amputated, or I mean, so all that stuff. So a very, very good point, Morry, that I think is a very big a part of what I like about the department I work on, is we have a button that just says, boom, we just press it. We move on about our charting system, and we get a report in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, kind of went off on a tangent there. um, Morry, when it comes to what you found out, like, share with us how you discovered this brainwave entrainment, and where you found it, and was it trial and error? Just explain more about how you came upon this.
So, first 40 years of my life, I would say I was clinically depressed. I was never diagnosed clinically depressed, but I would say I was. I used to wake up every morning and look out my window and hope I would see mushroom clouds
Oh, wow.
for 40 years every day. I had an affirmation that I still think sounds rather dramatic, but it's disgusting. Life is a disease for which there is no cure but death. That I probably repeated hundreds of thousands of times, if
Right.
not more than
Wow.
that. Uh, you know, I pretended to smile. I pretended to laugh. I guess that's how I got friends.
Hmm.
Pardon me. I was on a camping trip. And remember, I tried all the usual things. So, first things I tried were addictions. So, I was an addict. I was a pot smoker. I smoked probably 20, 30, 40 joints a day.
Wow.
Uh, I drank like a fish. I wasn't uncommon for me to have 3 dates in the same day. Just
Hmm.
things to try to distract myself. None of that helped. It all made it worse.
Wow.
Then I thought, well, let's try the doctor route. Doctors, clinicians, psychologists, that kind of thing. Well, they all said that I'm coping really well and there's nothing they can do. Keep in mind, back then they didn't give pills for everything.
Right.
So if it was today, they'd probably have me hyper medicated and just kick me back. Then I decided, well, I'm going to try all the weird stuff I could find. And this is before the internet. So, I tried every little device I could find, every supplement I could find, every chemical I could find, everything, technique, whatever. Nothing helped. One day I came across this thing called Brainwave Entrainment. And it's by then I'm researching for like 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And it seemed to, dot the I's and cross the T's. Except when I tried what was available and I tried every brand I could find, there were like 30 or 40 varieties. They all seemed to be the same thing and none of them helped me.
Okay.
So I thought, wow, what am I going to do now? I pretty much exhausted everything there is. I tried, like I said, EMDR, hypnosis, meditation, all the variations I could find. Literally, there's thousands of variations.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing helped. But the brainwave entrainment stuck in me in it. And I thought, the one thing I've noticed about it is it's the same and it's never changed since it was first found.
Okay.
Everybody does it the same way. Nobody does it uniquely. Everybody does the same thing as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That struck me as being a little unreasonable and not natural. For instance, I used to have a full head of hair. Everything changes. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Everything's supposed to change. That's what evolution is. It's change. Made me realize maybe I need to change this. Maybe the whole point of me being the way I am for all this time was to find this and then realize it needs to be changed and apply all my learning, all of my intuition that I built up over 40 years of looking for different things, of going to a place called the paper internet. Are you familiar with that place?
No.
It's called a library.
Oh, I've never heard it called that.
Yeah, I coined the
I remember being
phrase.
in a couple of those back in the day.
Yeah. So they didn't have, the internet back then. So I'm researching neurology papers, neurobiology, neurophysics, quantum physics. Yes, quantum physics existed all those years ago.
Yeah.
And I ended up recalibrating and recreating brainwave entrainment and making it my own. When I did that, the first time I listened was interesting because I didn't listen for a month after I designed my first recording. I was afraid, what if it didn't work?
Mm.
Because I thought it's pretty much my last hope. Then for the next 2 weeks, because I got over that, but after the next 2 weeks, what if it does work? What's it going to do? What if it makes it worse?
Right.
I end up figuring I can't go on like this anyway, so I better just try it.
Right.
I tried it, and two things happened. One of them I didn't realize till about 6 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And this
And
is
you've been
decades
doing,
later.
you've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah.
Well, a lot longer than that.
Okay. Okay.
So, but the first thing that happened was I ran the session. It was half an hour. I felt like I heard everything. I knew everything. It felt like half an hour, but I felt no different.
Okay.
Nothing at all. And I started getting depressed, like super depressed, because I was always depressed, but then I'd hit what I call super depression. And as I was just turning to super depression, another voice came into my head. You see, one of the symptoms I had were thousands of voices,
Oh, wow.
but
Okay.
all at the same time. So first, what happened was I had this negative thought that I'm crap out of luck. Nothing's going to help me. I'm going to have to live my life this way for the rest of it. I feel like I'm 1,000 years old, by the way.
Hmm.
Anyone who's ever been depressed knows how slow time goes.
Right.
Well, for 40 years of slow movement, I feel like I'm 1,000 years old.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. So I started, thinking right away, I'm screwed. It's over. I just have to live like this. And right away, one voice came to me and said, "What did you expect after 40 years? Did you really think one 30-minute recording is going to change your life?" And I accepted it.
Okay.
I did. I cut myself off from a major depression, stayed in my usual state of depression, but super depression didn't happen because of one voice saying, "What did you expect? One time is going to change your life?" Now, at the time, I didn't realize that was a major benefit because in the past, I would have just flown off the handle 6 weeks, few months of serious depression above and beyond my regular depression. But I was telling this story to someone else about 6 months ago, and it struck me, wait a minute, that was a benefit. I didn't realize that was a benefit. The benefit I realized was that about 5 minutes after the session ended, I started hearing the voices coming back. And that
Okay.
was the first time in my life I had never heard the voices.
Oh, so you had a pause on the voices, and then 5 minutes later they came back. So there was some,
After the session,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, there was some help. There was some help
right
after,
away.
yeah, right away.
Yeah.
So therefore, 40 years worth of trying to get those voices suppressed, you have to do a few more.
Yeah, and those voices were just one of the many symptoms that I was dealing with.
Right.
So, but realizing the voices were gone, even just for 5 minutes, was like, wow.
Yeah.
It comes down to this: go into a very bright room and try to find a speck of darkness. Not too hard, not very easy to do, but go into a dark room and look for a speck of light.
Right.
That's easy to
That's
see.
real easy.
Yeah, and when I realized that life could be different, even if it was just a little bit, even if it just was for a couple of minutes,
Hmm.
that let me know life could be different. And
That's
since then, I
an
can't stop
epiphany.
inventing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I invent nonstop now. I have 50 new techniques I'm working on. I have 24 systems currently released, another 10 getting ready to be released. All of them have unique proprietary techniques or technology that I invented. And I can't stop the thoughts now. It just keeps coming. And now it's not noise, it's ideas, it's concepts. It's how can I make things better? How can I help people to
Right.
help themselves? Because I realized I couldn't find anyone to help me
Wow.
except when I was hurt. Then lots of
Yeah.
people were there to
Yeah.
help me. I
Yeah.
was very
Exactly.
grateful. But the mental help, I couldn't find anyone to help me. Ultimately, I had to help myself. And my systems are designed to help people to help themselves.
So, with that being said, would you also state what about the concept of people that aren't in crisis or in depression? Does it pre help? Does it fortify someone? If does is that a different technology or a different sound or what have you, or a different
Well,
path?
I treat that's a good question. I treat the brain like a muscle. So I can't make claims like what you're asking me to make.
Okay,
But I can tell you that I treat the brain like a muscle. So I stimulate it just like a muscle. And with a muscle, when you exercise it, it gets stronger. And when it gets stronger, it can do anything that it could do before, but it can do it better. It can do it longer. It can do it easier.
gotcha,
So infer what you will from that. Normally,
gotcha.
people ask me, will this help me with this? Will this help me with that? I say, you know what? That's a fantastic question. You're asking the wrong person.
You got to ask yourself.
I offer a guarantee. Use it regularly and consistently and properly. And then you tell me if it
Right.
helps. I have testimonials. I just sent someone a document that's about 150 pages of testimonials. These are just testimonials that I haven't had time to put online yet.
Wow.
Yeah. There's people from all aspects, all, walks of life. I have people who tell me that they've credit their recovery from stroke
Wow.
for listening to my work.
Yeah.
Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the Alzheimer's book, The End of Alzheimer's, it was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, actually uses my system as part of his protocol to help with sleep, anxiety, stress. I also have frequencies now that I believe might help with breaking down the tau tangles and the beta amyloid protein that actually gets in the way of the signaling in the brain.
Interesting. Wow. And that's all frequency that we hear with.
Pulse frequency, not even frequency, because most people think of frequency like,
Yeah. Like, wait. Yeah.
this
Okay.
is actually pulsed, so beats per second.
Bup,
Pop,
bup,
pop, pop,
bup,
pop,
bup,
pop,
bup,
pop,
bup,
pop, pop,
bup,
pop,
bup,
pop.
bup, bup.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Which it's that kind of, I'm a respiratory therapist, and one of the very, very advanced forms of respiratory breathing for someone on a ventilator is pulsated breathing. And it
yeah.
actually moves secretions. You would think that that pulsating secretion or pulsating air into the lungs through a tube wouldn't do anything, but it actually bursts of air pushes the secretions out. And a lot of fire, like smoke inhalation patients, that's like the go-to ventilator is this pulsating ventilator. So little bursts of
Right.
air. So that makes a lot of sense to me when it comes to pulsating rhythms that help rewire the brain. So that's some science too that's out there
Mhm.
and can be shared, right? I would think.
Well, that's how nerves actually operate.
Right.
The nerves, the brain cells, your neurons, pulse an electric frequency. Depending on how many times a second they pulse that electric frequency, that's the kind of frequency you're in. So you've heard of delta and beta and
Yeah. Yeah.
theta,
Yep.
gamma, and all these things.
Sure.
All that is, compartmentalizing a range of how many times per second the neuron's beating. And
Gotcha.
depending on the region of the brain and how many times a second it pulses, that dictates the kind of chemistry it produces.
Gotcha.
And we already understand now that chemistry is our experience.
Right. Right. Well, when it comes to you mentioned how you've helped all different types of walks of life and whatnot. Have you had any experience with true first responders that people have come to you or heard your message and they come to you and they're a police officer I know you're from Canada, so what are they up there, Mounties? No,
No, we have cops here too.
you have cops there too. Yeah, I know you do,
Yeah.
but well, you see some shows with the red outfit and the big hat, and you're like, oh, that's cool, So,
Yeah.
but
The
when
Royal
it
Canadian Mounted Police are a different branch.
different,
They're,
yeah, of
yeah, a
course, yeah.
different branch. They're not local, they're more national.
More national. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, have you had anybody that you can speak on or not speak about, like, specifically, but, have you helped first responders or people that are police officers, firefighters, paramedics, nursing, healthcare? I kinda put them in the same category when it comes to
Mhm.
those frontline healthcare workers too.
I actually have systems for nurses in training and nurses themselves to actually peak perform. I don't know that I have. I mean, I get a lot of testimonials, so it's hard to say, but I don't know that I have. It's been hard. It's been a hard road for me to try to get credibility with organizations like
Right.
first responders, like veterans, like military, like, doctors. It's not easy. A lot of people look at my work as kind of woo woo,
Mm,
but it's based in science. It's just that,
right.
my work doesn't involve cutting and slashing. It doesn't involve pills. It doesn't involve, and I'm not saying that these things are bad because they all have their place. But the problem is, at least here in North America, we're very married to things that require to be purchased a lot.
Mm,
So there's not a monetary reason. My work's relatively inexpensive, a couple $100 on average. And once you buy it, it's good for life.
mm, okay.
So it's not like you have to buy pills every month because they expire or you've used them up.
Gotcha.
That makes it a little less exciting, a little less enticing to insurance companies
Right.
because they don't get a lot of kickback from that.
Yeah, of course.
Doctors tend to poo poo it because they don't understand it. And doctors tend to be taught what they're taught, and nothing else matters.
Right.
If they're not taught it, it doesn't exist. At least that's how it is here in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's a tough haul to get it in to these groups of people. But I believe once it gets in, it'll catch like wildfire because it's the kind of thing, like for instance, fire department and EMT, I believe they work on 3 or 4 day shifts, right? Where they're
Some
there.
of us do. Everybody is different. I can't speak for everyone. I know in my area we're 24 on, 48 off.
Yeah.
Now there are some places that are in my state as well that do 72 hours on and 72 hours off, or 2 days
Yeah.
on and 3 days off. There's different rotations. I know that there are fire departments and EMS programs out there that do 12-hour shifts because the run volume is so ginormous that they, like let's take, New York City, for example. They would never be able to sleep if they did 24-hour shifts,
Yeah.
so because they're just constantly it's just the amount of people is just too much, right? Whether it be emergency, EMS calls, or fire runs in general. Oh, fire alarm,
They
got to
don't
go
sit
see what it is.
around.
Yeah, they don't sit around. So I believe that they're 12-hour shifts for the most part. And there's other places like private ambulance companies that are 12-hour shifts, but ultimately it's still long hours, and even hospital shifts. I mean, I went to become a paramedic so I could get more days off a year, because when I worked at the hospital, I was 12-hour shifts. I would leave an hour before I went to work to get there on time where I lived. And some people commute further than that, right? And then I'd get home after report. And after I'd get home from that, I would get home probably, hour or so after my shift was supposed to be over. And it would be, I don't see my kids or my family in the morning before I leave. And I see them in their bed when they're sleeping when I got home when they were little. So when I became a paramedic, I went over, and yes, I'm gone for a whole day, but I was gone. I would do 3 12-hour shifts in a row. I'd be gone for 4 days in their mind because they'd never see me. I'd be at the house in the night at nighttime sleeping, but unless they woke up in the middle of the night, they wouldn't see me. And so when I became a paramedic and started working my 24/48s, I actually freed up my time. I was gone for one whole day, then I was home for 2 whole days, and home before they went to school. So, we do a lot of long hours. We, just like hospital workers and healthcare workers, some, a lot of people get away from 8-hour shifts. I've heard a new trend that people are doing 16-hour shifts, and they're doing 2 of those a week. But that's still a long time for one day. And then,
Yeah.
another problem that we have as first responders, especially first responders that may have another healthcare profession, or know of other departments that need help too. We go to our full-time job, and what do? We take our day off, but our day off goes and works at another department or
Yeah.
another specialty. And that, I believe, I don't know, I'd love to see if there's a study on a controlled study on knowing that people had something different than a second first responder / healthcare job compared to people that had a second, or and what their stress levels were like. Because if you never get a time off from the consistent input that's happening on a daily basis in that industry, I can't imagine that that's going to be good for anything. So
No, and it's going to make them less effective at what they're doing when they're
right.
on also.
Yeah. And maybe in the beginning when they're young and they can blow everything off. I mean, I get that, but as you chug through this career, it's not all about what we see. Remember, it's about the time away from home. It's about the things that always happen when you're away from home. Like, oh, the garage door broke again. Yep, I'm not there to help fix it, or what have you. Car breaks
Yeah.
down and nobody's there to come get you because, yeah, I just can't leave my post, right? So you mentioned earlier a little bit about about your program. So if you want to explain your program and share with the audience, how they can find you, where they can see a sample. I know darn well, because you and I have talked about it. You have a sample part of your program that you're willing to let people take part in. So whatever you mention, if it's websites or programs or an ebook, all that stuff will be down below in the description. So just go ahead and share more about your business side of it and what you do to help people and how they can find you.
So the best way to find me is going to be by the link that Kyle's going to stick down below. To learn more about me personally, I'm not sure you want to. You have hard enough life as it is. You don't need to
Vicarious
hear
trauma, is
more
that what you're saying?
hardship.
Yeah. Well, you've
Yeah,
shared
you don't
enough.
need to hear
Yeah.
more. You don't need to hear more suffering. Okay. The the bottom line is that, the healthier you are, the happier you are, the better the job you're going to do, and the
Yeah.
more effective you're going to be for the people you're helping. One of the things that's nice about the kind of work that I do is it's not a pill, so it doesn't have to be prescribed. And it's also good for who needs it and caregivers too. So people like you who are helping others,
Mm-hmm.
you can be more efficient, you can have a more fulfilling life if your brain is optimized and if you're able to deal with stress easier.
Right.
And that's really what this work does. It's not about me helping you, it's about you helping yourself.
Perfect.
I can
Yeah.
create the exercise machine, but it's up to you to use
To
it.
get on it. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
And we
that's
put
basically what it is.
Right. And we put so much focus. I'm glad you said that. In this industry, we put so much focus on the physical well being of ourselves. We have many of things and because it's tangible, it's visible. It's like, yes, if I get on the treadmill for 20 minutes a day, I should be in a little bit better shape than I was if I didn't do a treadmill and I just sat around. So knowing that, that is there and that the focus is on, and we accept the physical help and the physical realm of helping ourselves be more physically fit.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that through the processes of what you do, what I'm doing, what I'm involved in, what many people are starting to get involved in, many speakers out there in the world trying to bring this epidemic of first responder crisis, if you will, our suicide rates, our divorce rates, our substance abuse rates, all way more than anybody else in any other profession. And it's got to change, and it's got to change somewhere, whether it be podcasts, whether it be directly contacting me or Morry if you think this is a good idea for you and want to experiment or want to explore it. I should say, not experiment, explore his thought process and what he has, and see if you can have the same success. But the main thing is that we still have to choose to get on that treadmill. This is a mental treadmill, everybody. Let's choose to get on it, whether we're in crisis, pre-crisis, we think we may be coming in crisis, just any type of situation and timing that you can have to fortify yourself. I think it sounds too like computerized. I use the word fortify a lot, but it's really what we want to do. I learn a lot of things about what I'm supposed to do in a chest pain situation. I go right to my protocol. I know everything I need to do, right? What I don't have the training on is what I need to do after a really difficult run or after a mistake or after a decision that, that probably wasn't the best decision. I could have done better there. Now, how do I unpackage that properly so it doesn't affect my job later on, that it builds me and I can learn from it? Because we're human, we make mistakes. I made a mistake yesterday that really upset me and put me into a spiral for a few minutes. And then I sat and I calmly thought and I did some breath work and I realized that I'm only human, that it was an honest mistake, and there was nobody was injured from it or anything like that. It was just, it's embarrassing, right? And I learned from it, and the only thing I can do is tell myself that I learned from it and move on and realize that I'm human. I will make more mistakes. Everybody will make mistakes. That's part of the world we live in, and that's part of being human. And it's okay, just as long as you know how to fix it on the back end.
Do you brush your teeth every day?
Yes, I do.
So whether you have a cavity or not, you brush your teeth, right?
Correct.
Good. That's what brain work is too.
Okay.
Don't wait for a cavity to start brushing your teeth. Don't
Good.
wait for your stress to debilitate you before you start doing something about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great
Really
point.
that
That's so
simple.
simple, man. I mean, like there it is. That's a nugget. So I call, if you've listened to my podcast enough, I say that people will eventually share their little nuggets of knowledge, right? And one of my guests talked about some, yeah, about someone.
Very small nugget, but
But
it's a
that's
nugget.
okay because it's all about the nuggets, right? Give me any type of gold nugget, I'll accept it, right? So, but with that being a nugget of that analogy, I think that's a great point. So, with that being said, Morry, anything else you want to talk to the listeners that are tuning in now, or anything else that's part of your program that you want to make sure you share? I mean, we'll have the link in the bottom that you can go to discover more about Morry's stuff. Anything you can offer in that link that expand on that link and what they see in it?
Okay, so in the link there will be a free recording, probably called Alpha Flight. It's designed specifically to calm the mind and increase creative levels. It's a short little recording. It's about 15 minutes long, and there is no cost for it. And you can use it as much as you want. Just don't use any of my recordings while you're driving or doing anything potentially dangerous.
Good point.
The one thing I'd like to leave you with, though, is happiness is a choice.
Very good.
You have a lot going on in your lives. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of, it's life threatening stuff. Often your own life is up for grabs too. It's not just you helping someone else who may or may not make it through. It's a matter of your decisions will influence your life, which influences your family's life and your friends' lives and everybody's life around you. So the one thing I'd like to encourage you to remember is that happiness is a choice. So you can choose to be happy. And when you choose to be happy, you'll see things that will make you happier. I also wanted to make one other point. Often people talk about things like the consciousness, the unconscious, the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
all these different minds. There's one mind, only one mind,
Okay.
period. When we speak of consciousness and subconscious and unconscious, that whole, pyramidal structure
Mm-hmm.
of an ice flow, and you see this much, this is the consciousness, and this is all unconscious. That's all a load of camel manure.
Okay.
Okay, it's not even cow crap, because cow crap fertilizes the earth and we get vegetables and fruit and wheat. So there's a benefit to cow crap. Camel crap, there's no benefit to
No
unless you're a
benefit.
fly or a dung beetle.
Right.
So the bottom line here is that unconscious, subconscious, consciousness, these were just categories to describe features that
Okay.
psychology came up with. They were never meant to be considered three different minds or three different brains. And everybody talks about how this is in conflict with that. There is no conflict in your mind. Don't imagine there is, because when you imagine there is, getting back to all of us seeing the world differently, if you imagine there's a conflict, then there is a conflict.
Gotcha.
Reality, quantum physics says nothing exists until we observe it. Well, observation isn't just seeing, observation is interpreting too. So
Right.
be very cautious how we interpret things, because that's going to determine how you see the world around you. And
So
we
true.
talked a little bit about this hero thing. I know it's better to have someone else think of you as a hero than you, but you know what? Think of yourself as a hero, because you are doing
That is
heroic
positive.
things. You're
Right.
doing things that most people don't do. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to, tell people, I'm a hero, I'm a hero. But you have to know it for yourself, because you are. And when you look at yourself as a hero, you will get superhuman abilities. You will be able to do more than you thought you could do. I'm sure there's already been plenty of times where you've done things, something happened around you. Maybe you were helping out at in an earthquake or a fire or something, where just mayhem happening all around you. And yet you're doing everything you need to do when you need to do it. You have the ability to be more than you think you are. And that goes for everybody, even if someone's listening who
Right.
isn't a first
Yeah.
responder.
Family members
Everyone
of the
has
first
that
responders.
ability. When I was in university, there was a gas bombing in my school, and I helped evacuate an entire building that normally I needed a map to get myself around. And when the police and the fire department showed up, I actually told them which rooms were empty and which rooms I hadn't looked at yet.
Hmm.
And each room I said was empty was empty. The next day I had to use a map to find my class. So all I'm saying is, think of yourselves as heroes, because you are. And understand that under the right, especially because you've had training above and beyond someone with just good intentions, you can do things. You're capable of things that all the rest of us would look at and go, holy crap, how the hell did she do that? How the hell did he do that? The bottom line is, you do incredible work. You provide a service that very few people are mentally or physically able to provide. And that doesn't make us less important as people because we can't do it. It just means that the better you think of yourself,
Hmm.
the more capable you're going to be as well. In other words, the more confident you are in what you do and why you do it, the better able you will be to actually do it.
That
And
makes sense.
and you don't, just because you think a lot of yourself doesn't mean you think less of someone else.
Right.
That's why we don't tell other people what we think of ourselves, because they will start imposing their beliefs on us, and that's not healthy.
Right.
But for you, you do amazing work every single day, even if you show up and you're doing nothing because it's a light day.
Well,
Okay,
because
you're
even in
there.
that preparation, and we had a situation a couple of months ago, and we have just started. I've had more training in the last 2 years on childbirth than I've had in my whole career.
Yeah.
And guess what's happening more? I've been a part of two deliveries now, and our department in general had more deliveries now than ever before. And I remember talking to my partner after the delivery, and I said, "Man, were you really calm?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, I think it's because of the mental reps. I'm like, how do you simulate birth? You can only simulate birth unless it's the real deal. So
Yeah.
it's just like, how do you stop a gushing, arm from bleeding? Well, the only way to simulate that is to, to put it on
Yeah.
one that's faking it. So what to do out of reaction and out of instinct, right? So it makes a lot of sense. What you're saying there is to think of ourselves in a way that's positive. So then we
Yeah.
get into the situation. It's a mental rep of positivity to get through the situation properly. So that makes a
Yeah,
lot of
it allows you the confidence to proceed with what you know.
right
Everything you see, everything you learn, you know. It's a matter of accessing it when you need it.
when you need it.
And if you're confident in yourself and
Right.
you let yourself go, if you let yourself kind of be in the zone, then you will access that information. Even if, like, for here, very quick example, and then I know I'm taking way too much time here,
That's okay.
but here's an example that'll let people understand what I'm saying is true. Okay, so Kyle, did you have dinner last night?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what you had for dinner? You don't have to tell me, just a yes or a no.
Yes, I do remember.
Good. When I asked you, do you remember what you had for dinner? You thought of it, right? It popped into your head.
Yeah,
When I asked
I
you
had to.
what you had for dinner, it popped into your head when I asked you, right?
Yes, it did.
Were you thinking about it 5 minutes ago?
No.
Exactly my point. That was
Gotcha.
information that was in your brain. You didn't need it till I asked the question that was relevant. You all who are trained in all these amazing techniques
That's a good
don't
point.
remember things until you need them. Trust yourself that you will remember what you need when you need it, and you will.
What a great point. That is so good. I love that. I love that.
Sure.
I've had someone do that to me before a few years ago in a conference that I was at, and I remember that point of yeah, let's think of something. Then you went and opened up the file, grabbed it, and brought it to you, but you weren't thinking about it 5 minutes ago. So it's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so be confident, be understanding. Get some resiliency and fortification training. Reach out to Morry Zelcovitch here if you feel that what he described as something that you'd want to look into and want to see for your own self, if it's something that could be beneficial to you. I know I'm going to go download the free file and start listening to his stuff because I like to know all kinds. I like to do my own uh,
Yeah.
research and my own trying at different things just to see if something helps better than what I'm doing now. So, when it comes to stair stepping, I don't like stair stepping, but I like the treadmill, or I like actually rowing better than all of them because it's less impact. So, think of it that way, that there's different exercise machines to build our muscles. There's different exercise machines and techniques and knowledge to build the brain. So, Morry, thank you so much for coming on and explaining this brainwave entrainment to us all. And don't hesitate to reach out to Morry. Him and I have spoke several different times. Super easy to get along with. Very, very fun to talk to. One of the real ones out there, guys. So once again, thanks for tuning in to the Elevate podcast. If you've heard something while you're listening to this that someone else would benefit from, don't hesitate to share it with them. Definitely please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notifications when we put up new episodes, and we will be talking to you soon. Take care, everybody. That's a wrap for this episode of Elevate, brought to you by Frontline Empowerment Solutions, your partner in building resilience and fostering continued growth. If you found something valuable today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our next conversation. We're here to bring you more stories and insights, all aimed at strengthening the first responder community. Together, let's keep elevating each other, one episode at a time.